Hi everyone, today we're making caramel slice. Now I've never been a real fan of caramel slice, and then I tried to make my own. And then I tweaked and I have this recipe. It's fantastic. It is so good and it's so simple to make. The hardest thing about it is waiting to eat it at the end. That is the hardest. I'm going to show you how easy it is to make. The first thing we need to do is make our base. Now we're going to cook our base, so pop your oven on. You want to set your oven at about 180 degrees Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit. So let's start. To our bowl, we're going to add 1 cup of plain flour. 1 cup. Simple so far, right? Now to that, 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Now when you measure out your brown sugar, make sure you pack it into your cup. It is important. Most recipes will say packed brown sugar, and packed means packed. Don't just lightly pack it. Squash it in there, scrape it off. That's packed. When it comes out, it should look like it would if you were at the beach. To this, we're adding coconut. We want 1/2 cup of coconut. Now, I'm using, I think it's a cross between a shredded and a desiccated. The shredded that I buy it in bulk and it's too coarse for my cooking, so I shred it myself. Now, if you're not a big coconut fan, add desiccated coconut. Add a really fine coconut. You really need the coconut in the base because that's what gives it that chewy texture. If you don't have the coconut, you're just gonna have a cakey base. You won't have the chewiness. So that's what I like. But you can try it, give it a go. Put desiccated, see what it is that you like. Now we're just gonna mix that through, and then I have 125 grams of butter here that I'm just gonna pop in the microwave, probably 25 seconds, 30 seconds, and I'll get that melted. Okay, so now's the chance for you to whisk your flours in your base. You're gonna have a couple of lumps of brown sugar and maybe a couple of lumps of flour, I don't know. There's lumps of something in mine. So just get your whisk in there and whisk it through. We don't want any lumps. And then we're gonna add our melted butter. Now I just popped that 125 grams of melted butter for 25 seconds on high in my microwave. So just pop that in. And then stir it through, that's your base. Now when you start mixing this through, it's gonna seem like quite a dry base. That's okay, because we're gonna press this into this tin. Now once that's all mixed through, just set it to the side. Now this tin I'm using is a 25 centimetre tin. I think that is, let me look, 9 3/4 inch. So 25 centimetre, 9 3/4 inch. Now I'm just gonna line that with greaseproof paper. Don't line it with foil. Every time I use foil, the foil tears when you're trying to get it off your slice base, and you end up with little bits of foil that you're trying to get off it for forever. So use paper, it's so much better. Now with your greaseproof, you can pop it in and you can battle with your corners, or you can just screw it up. So just squash that into the tin. I know it doesn't look very neat after we screwed it all up like that, but it doesn't matter. Just pop your base in. Your base is in the tin. Now we're just gonna press that out. Just press it out so it's all nice and even, making sure that you're pushing it up into the corners. Now when you're doing this, your base is gonna seem quite thin. I think you're gonna start questioning my recipe and think, oh, I don't know, my base seems too thin. But it does, it seems like a thin base, but you'll be surprised what this puffs up to. Now when I'm pressing my base in, I don't mind if some of it goes up on the edges. You can go around it. If you want your slice to be beautiful around the edge, you can go round and you can just poke it all and make sure it's all nice and flat. That doesn't bother me that it's up on the edges like that, because I love those edges. You wait to see what I show you, what we do with the caramel. Oh, it's just heaven, this slice, honestly. So press it all in. It's relatively even. I've got that all pressed into my tin. Now, as you can see, I've got it up on the edges. That's fine. And also make sure you have your paper up a little bit, because don't forget it's a caramel slice. We're going to be adding caramel and chocolate to this. So make sure you've got enough paper, don't scrimp too much on it. Now I'm gonna pop this in the oven, 180 degrees Celsius, 350 Fahrenheit, 15 minutes. Now, depending on how you like your slice as to how long you cook it, I say 15 minutes. I reckon I'm going to take mine to about 20. I love that chewy base, I love it. So I'll probably take mine to 20, but I'll check in with you at 10-15 minute mark. That's our base after 15 minutes in the oven. Now, if you want a softer base for your slice, you can leave that now. That's fine. It's cooked through. It'll be fine. But I want to take mine a little bit further. So I can tell by looking that, I'm just going to turn it as I put it back in my oven, and I'm going to cook that for another 5 minutes. Now that's had 20 minutes in the oven. I take mine a fair way. So it might look a little bit overcooked, but it won't be. By the time we put caramel sauce and chocolate on that, it will add the nicest flavour by having all that brown, yummy goodness on the top of it. So don't be scared to take it too far, just don't burn it. So I'm just going to pop that to the side to cool for about an hour on my counters. My kitchen's quite cold. If you live in a hot climate, you can put this in the fridge. Just put it in there for about an hour, and then we'll put our caramel on the top of it. You don't want to put your caramel on yet, because you've got to remember it's a biscuit base. That's quite soft from coming out of the oven and quite hot. So we want that to cool, and as it cools, it'll firm up and become that big biscuit, just like it would if you were making individual little biscuits. It's the same concept in a slice. So we'll set that aside to cool, and then we'll cook our caramel. We'll put our caramel on the top of it. This is going to be the best caramel slice you've ever tasted. Honestly, it is that good. Whenever I'm in the kitchen, I always have an oven timer on the go, so I have multiple. It's really good to have a magnetic one. Not only does it stick to my oven, but it sticks to that little rack up there, so it's a good place to store them. It's so handy. So while that's baking in the oven, let's do the caramel. Now, there's no hurry for this, because that's going to be in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes, maybe 20, and then you want it to completely cool. Now, I made my own condensed milk yesterday. I tested this, works perfectly. So I'll do a quick video on the homemade condensed milk. It is so good. You'll never buy condensed milk again after making this. Honestly, you'll be shocked at how simple it is. So let's get started. Now the caramel couldn't be any easier. We've got 125 grams of butter. To that, I'm adding a packed half a cup of brown sugar. And then I'm going to take it over to the stove, because I want to melt the butter and the sugar through first. They are the hardest things to combine together in this, and once you see this on the stove, you'll understand how we add the ingredients separately. Now I've got vanilla extract and homemade condensed milk to go in this, but I don't want to add them yet. So if we put any flavours in now, they're just going to cook out. They're not going to hold their own in our caramel. So hold off on any extracts and flavours that you want to put, and I'll show you when we put them in. So let's get this over to the stove, and I'll give you a close-up of what it looks like. I've got my 125 grams of butter and my half a cup of brown sugar. Now I'm just going to stir that through. Make sure you keep it on a really low heat, because if you catch your sugar on the bottom of your pan, you'll have all horrible specks and things through your caramel. And we don't want that. We like a really lovely, smooth, lush caramel. So just keep stirring that through. Now, as you do this process, you'll see it's quite hard to make the sugar go in to the butter, but eventually it happens. Just persevere. Now, this is why you need it to be on a really low heat, just a low heat. We're just slowly dissolving this sugar into this butter. So we've got 395 grams of condensed milk and a teaspoon of vanilla extract that we want to add to this, but we don't want to add it yet. We want to make sure this is really well combined. Once you get this stage right, you can't go wrong after this. The main thing is at this stage, just don't let it catch on the bottom of your pan. Just keep stirring it and keep your heat down. I know it doesn't look like it's ever going to combine, but it does. It comes together. Now you can start to see this coming to a simmer. That's fine that it simmers. Just keep it going until this is completely combined. Now at this point, it's bubbling nicely. It's all well combined. It looks really good. So turn the heat off or remove it from the heat. I can just turn mine off because I have gas. I'm going to grab my condensed milk and my vanilla extract, and I'll pop that in. So condensed milk and vanilla extract is in. Now we're just going to stir to combine. Now once again, just keep it on a low heat. We're cooking our caramel slow. Now if you wanted to add a different flavour other than vanilla extract, now's when you want to add it. You don't want to add it to the beginning of the recipe because as you saw how hot that was, we would have cooked that flavour out. So now we're only just going to bring this to a steady boil. So any flavours you put in here now, they're going to hold tight for your slice. So I'm going to keep stirring this until I bring it up to a boil. I'm not going to take my eyes off it because if it catches on the bottom of the pan now, our caramel is all over Red Rover. So keep stirring. Now it's really good to stir with one of these little things because you can always make sure it's flat on the bottom of your pot. Super, super handy. Now I can feel this starting to thicken, so we're not far off the boil. Now that our caramel's almost done, I'm just going to pop my oven on because we're going to pour this onto our biscuit base and pop it back in the oven for 10 minutes. So I'm popping my oven on the same setting that I had it on before, just the 180. Now as this caramel starts to come to the boil, you'll feel that it starts to thicken. Now you can see all these bubbles that we have across the top. We want to take it a little bit further than this. Even though it's going in the oven, we just want to make sure our caramel is the perfect consistency. Now when I run my spoon through this, I can see that it's still bubbling. It doesn't matter what I do to it, it just keeps bubbling and bubbling and bubbling. So that means our caramel's done. Let's take it off the heat and go and pour it onto our biscuit base. I've got my cooled biscuit base, I've got my super hot caramel, I've got my oven set at 180 degrees. Let's go. So just pour. Now you can just pour this on as it is, or you can put it through a sieve. I can see that there's a couple of little, I don't know, I think they might be a bit of coconut. Just sit your sieve and just pour. So clean bottom, no sticking. That was because we kept it on low. Now just pop that through. So don't be tempted to lick anything at this point in the kitchen. This caramel is so hot, it will take skin off. So if you do want to, just set it aside for it to cool a little bit before you do. We've all been guilty of licking something in the kitchen that has taken skin off our tongues. I remember licking a metal whisk once that was way too hot, and I'm sure I heard my tongue sizzle. So that's your caramel all in. Just give it a little tap to get any bubbles out, just a little tap. And that's it. I'm just gonna pop that in the oven. Now before I put this in the oven, I'm just gonna give it a little slosh either side. I just want the caramel to go up the edges a little bit so that then those edges that are around my slice in the end have got those beautiful crispy caramelly bits to it that are on the side of the chocolate. You'll see what I'm talking about when I unveil it, and if you don't do it, you'll regret it. I'm gonna set my timer for about 10 minutes. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. The caramel's gonna start to bubble and get all super, super hot. It's gonna continue to cook. Now I want that caramel to just get a slight little tinge of brown on the top, just to add a little bit more flavor. So that's been in the oven for exactly 10 minutes. Now I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm not gonna take that any further. Now that brown that you can see on the top, that's just my condensed milk coming through. That's not cooked. Actually, no, that's not. So I've just pulled that out of my oven after 10 minutes, and I'm gonna take that a bit further. So I'm gonna pop that back in the oven and set my timer for a further 5 minutes. So while that one's in the oven, I'll show you this one. Now this is one that I cooked last night. I'll get it out of the tin and I'll be able to show you what it looks like when I tipped the caramel. I cooked this in a 32 by 24 centimetre pan. So that made the slice a lot thinner instead of what we've done today, a 25 by 25. Now I cooked this caramel further than the one that I cooked today, but this is how I like it. I will take my caramel as far as the top of a creme brulee. You can see by the edges on this how the caramel has come up the sides. That's what happened when we swished our caramel. We've got that beautiful little edge around our slice and our chocolate will sit in there. You don't have to do that. I just really like the edge pieces. I will cut this slice up and put it in my fridge for everybody, and I will keep all those edge bits in a separate container that nobody else knows about. So that's had 15 minutes in the oven and it's fantastic. It looks perfect. It's evenly bubbled and the outsides are just starting to brown. That's exactly how we want it. Now this is so hot. Just sit it on the counter, leave it alone until it cools a little bit, then pop it in the fridge. You can cool it a lot quicker if you pop it in the fridge. So once this is cooled, we can come back and we can turn this into caramel slice. For the chocolate top, we're gonna melt 200 grams of chocolate. Now when choosing your chocolate for a slice, especially a caramel slice, you wanna make sure it's a chocolate that you like. Don't choose a cooking chocolate or something that you wouldn't normally eat. Choose a chocolate that you love to eat. That way, your finished product is something that you love. I use a combination of a dark chocolate and a white chocolate. I just find I really like the taste of the dark chocolate with just a little bit more sweetness in it from the white. That's my preference. You mix it up, you make your chocolate however you want your chocolate. So I'll go ahead, put this on the stove, get it melted, we'll come back and we'll pour it on top of our slice. So now you've got that on there, just pour it over. Just make sure it just goes into all the corners of your pan. And then up on those edges. And everywhere. And that's it. I'm just gonna give that a tap on my bench just to get out any air bubbles that are sitting on the top and to make sure it goes out to the edges. Now I'm gonna pop this back in the fridge, let the chocolate set, then we're gonna slice this up and have a look, see what it looks like. So now this is what we've all been waiting for. The chocolate's set, let's get it out and have a look. There it is, the caramel slice. Well, my version of the caramel slice. Let's cut it open and have a look. But before we do, remember when we tipped the caramel and we created these beautiful edges? Hopefully you can see that. I'll lift it up. You can see all those beautiful edges that we created all the way around our slice. They are the best bits. So save those, put those at the back of the fridge. Now you can choose your sizing, you can cut it up, big, small. I like to cut mine into bite-sized pieces because every time I make a coffee, I like to have a little piece of this. If you want a bigger piece, you have a bigger piece. I'll cut a little bit bigger today so that we can see what it looks like inside. Now I've used my bread knife to cut that. It just meant that I could get the whole way across the slice without getting into it. My hand touched on there a little bit, but that didn't matter. So let's have a look inside. There we have our caramel slice. It is delicious, you have to try it. So I'll go ahead and cut that into bite-sized pieces. But before we do that, let's have a look at the other one we did. Now, we did this one in the 25 by 25 tin, and then this one we did in the 32 by 24 tin, I think. So that came out a lot thinner. So that's the difference in your slice. So you can have that either way depending on what tin you put it in. So you can have a thicker slice or you can have a thinner. Depends if you want a thin chewy slice or a thick indulging. The base is still chewy, but this is chewier. You choose, depending on the size of the tin, same recipe. And once again, it was made with our homemade condensed milk. Now I'll go ahead and slice this up into bite-sized pieces. I just pop it into a container, into the fridge, and it'll last for weeks and weeks, if it can last that long in your fridge. I'm gonna continue to use my bread knife to chop this up. If it starts to get a bit messy, don't forget you've got your hot soapy water in your sink, and now is when you're gonna need it. Now I really hope you give this recipe a go. It was super easy and it is so indulgent. You're gonna love it. And once again, it was basic ingredients and we just put them together in a different way. Give it a go and enjoy. I'm gonna go make myself a coffee and I can already see the piece that I'm going to have. I have my eye on this corner right here and I'm gonna slice it off and enjoy.